All right, so can you all see us and hear us?
Yes.
Okay, good, 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 good.
No, it was me. It was me. I just unmuted it to test it.
I turned off my other device. There should be no echo now.
Sounds great. You sound warm, close, and strangely very comforting, Dr. Keeler. Or maybe you can't hear us.
Can you hear us, Dr. Keeler?
We can't hear
Loud
you.
and clear.
All right,
Loud
there
and
we go.
Now we
clear.
hear you. There you go. Big delay on there. Well, guys, sorry about that. We had the gremlins came in as usual. Every once in a while, they come in and jump into the wire spool and pull out a bunch of cables, and we had to do a bunch of troubleshooting here to get us back online. But we are online, and we shall endeavour to continue with today's session. So thanks for those of you who stayed on, our ride or die crew who stayed with us. The rest of you, not so much. But no, we know it's technical issues here. It just happens, you know. We are at the mercy of Big Brother, aka Xfinity and Zoom and Wirecast and what other apps we have. So we'll just jump straight in. So any of you guys have questions, comments, concerns, again, thanks for coming, thanks for joining, thanks for staying on. Those of you on IG, I don't know if you came back on. If you had questions, I know Dr. Amsu was in the middle of maybe answering one question, or you'd finished and then you signed off. So if you do have any questions, let's get to that, because we will still be finishing at 7, if not sooner, if there's no questions. So you were telling us...
No, you were telling us about what's going on with
people dying.
Yes.
Well, yes, I may say the same thing every week, because every week it's, you know, we hear more and more stories of this stuff. It seems to be escalating. It's the communities maybe not so much not taking heed to it. Unfortunately, we have to wait for celebrities to die before we, you know, want to see the truth. It's not enough that we see people in our own families, in our communities, suffering these conditions. We don't take heed to it. I don't know, have we been that brainwashed by society that, you know, we think everything's okay now and we can eat and drink and do whatever we want? And we're not saying you can't. Of course, there's no mandate coming from this side of the screen. You guys are free to do whatever you like, of course. However, know the consequences. And what we're really trying to do here is share, you know, the lifestyle hacks is the word the kids are using now. Lifestyle hacks to maintain your quality of life into old age. I, for one, you know, I'm of a slender build. People of a slender build can often have, you know, joint issues because of just, I don't know, it's just ratio of numbers, joints and things like that. And I learned from a friend, I guess, a friend who worked in a cardiac emergency unit down there in Florida. And I've shared this before, that, you know, my assumption was that people of, you know, overweight people and people who have certain conditions are the ones that go into, you know, his facility. He said, no. He said he was shocked that I'd even said it. He goes, anybody, any size, any shape, any color, if you either have, you know, the pre-existing conditions or you treat your body a certain way, it can go to cardiac arrest. It's not just overweight people. Someone could be overweight, right? Here's the funny thing, Dr. Amsu, help me out on this. Maybe Dr. Keeler, you can pipe into this. I've had a theory for a long time, right? Because we know that obesity is a precursor to a lot of things, right? Because it, you know, affects the body's immunity and, you know, just general workability, right? However, let's say someone is supposed to be an athlete. They have athlete genes, right? They've got a big, powerful heart. They've got, you know, strong genes, if I can use that term. But then they let themselves go. They could probably get quite fat and carry it around because they have athlete engine underneath. Do you know what I mean? But not everyone has that athlete engine, or maybe they haven't had it fine-tuned. So you can find people who are probably overweight, but seem to be, you know, quote unquote fit, sort of bouncing around because they have this, you know, powerful engine underneath it. It's not optimized, but they have this powerful engine underneath it. The problem is that people who don't have a powerful engine who then become obese and overweight, they succumb more quickly. The point I'm making is that I think there are a lot of people who assume that because someone can be big and run around that, oh no, it's okay to be overweight, right? It's okay to be obese because so-and-so can do it. They seem to be quite healthy. They're having a great time, right? Now, of course, that person isn't telling what's going on in closed doors, right? So I think the illusion that people seem to be healthy or going about their daily lives who are obese or have a condition tends to lend, an idea to the rest of the world that it's okay, or yeah, you can get by, or it's not as dangerous as we think, or modern medicine will take care of us, And I guess we need to wake up to the ideology that poor health is poor health, no matter how it's dressed up, no matter how, what's the old saying? You can put lipstick on a pig, but it's still a pig, right? And I think that's what a lot of allopathic medicine does. It puts lipstick on a pig. We're unhealthy, but they make us look pretty. They can get you through the day. It's a corset. It's the, we were looking at the Louis XIV, that time period in France where most of the aristocracy were ill. They had all manner of diseases. That's why they had the makeup. They used to put the cake on their faces so you couldn't see the moles and the, the crevices on their face. So they would pile on this makeup. The problem is the makeup was making it worse because the makeup was toxic. They
We were
put
talking about lead. It was lead in
we
makeup.
were talking about lead. They put the wigs on because they had alopecia and all kind of, conditions that were scarring their head. So they wore wigs. So that, I guess the paradigm of covering up to hide the blemishes is age old, and I think we're just carrying on. Despite all of modern science, we're still piling on the lead makeup and putting wigs on, So I'll stop talking now, but that's on my radar.
All right. Well, most people are unhealthy. The vast majority of people are unhealthy. If you look at the pharmaceutical industry, the reason why it's booming, aside from, the obvious vaccine, COVID-19 vaccine, which basically saved a lot of these companies, right? The pharmaceutical medication industry is booming. And it's, there's a question that can be placed out there. Is it because they are creating the market for their pharmaceuticals, i.e., do they know what conditions to set to make people ill so that they now depend upon the medications? Now, I'm asking it in a question form because we will have to adhere to the guidelines, so unless I say allegedly after everything I say, Dr. Keeler, I would like to hear, your insight on the phenomena, the status quo of the health of the world. There we go.
Oh, we've got no audio.
Just waiting for your audio, Dr. Keeler. Just waiting for your audio.
Okay.
There you go. We hear you now.
Is that better?
That's a lot better.
Okay. So oftentimes when you look at the food industry and what is in our food, most of us don't recognize how much chemical we eat. And most of us, even if we can afford to buy what's in the store, we're not buying the things that are going to feed our cells, and more specifically, feed our organelles. So the organelles are like the organs in your body, but they're in every cell for the most part. And whatever organelles are in greatest number determines in large part what the function of that cell will be. So, and when people don't eat nutrient-dense foods, what ends up happening is they're functional, but they're starving. And so they can't clear out toxins when they're supposed to while they're sleeping. They can't dispatch emergency responder immune cells, namely macrophages and neutrophils that eat up infection and infected cells. They can't do any of that. Their hormonal profiles change such that when they're supposed to be the most fertile, but they're the most stressed, they actually produce more stress hormones, particularly cortisol. And that hormone is permissive to other hormones, meaning it sets up the backdrop to make other stress hormones do their job more effectively. And when you're under chronic stress, which is prevalent in a heavily tech-based, heavily industrialized society, what ends up happening is it compromises your fertility as a woman and your virility as a man, because the same precursor for making estrogen and testosterone, I believe, is cholesterol, and that gets converted into another pre-hormone, namely pregnenolone. And when you're stressed, instead of that going toward making those supportive sex hormones that help with your metabolism for you to burn fat, you end up getting very low in those. So a man will start losing his hair, losing muscle mass, a woman's ability to shuttle electrolytes within the cells, often, which is particularly for magnesium and calcium, is very estrogen dependent. That gets compromised and it throws off everything. So if you have that backdrop going on, which is what we have in much of the industrialized world, you already have a backdrop set up to make you sick if you just add one more variable that's not supposed to be there. And that's pretty much where we are. So it's not just one industry, it's several industries working together,
right?
Some of which are owned by the same company.
Right, there you go. They're all in cahoots. It's allegedly. Allegedly, right? You know, the conspirators. So if there are conspirators and we're hypothesizing over it, it makes us conspiracy theorists, right? You know, and that's the thing, is that some stuff seems to be so unbelievable that there's no way they can get away with this. If they are doing it, that it can't be true. So you guys must be head cases. You must be tinfoil hat wearing conspiracy theorists and whatnot. But yet, you know, there are so many. All right, so I posted something into the GBD affiliate group today, right? Which came out, I think was like yesterday or day before, where Pfizer admitted that when they were testing the vaccine, there were no tests, and they did not make the claim as Pfizer that it would stop transmission of the virus. So if Pfizer never made that claim, who made the claim? And that claim in itself was responsible for the supposed COVID vaccine passports, and also all the people who were mandated to take the vaccine who were public health officials or public facing workers, even people in normal 9-to-5 jobs and whatever across the United States and across Europe, you know, in various places all over the world, by this alleged claim that who can remember who made the claim? Because we know the politicians, we know Joe Biden himself, right? This is not alleged. I can actually make this statement because he was all over the news, right? Good old Brandon, right? He was all over the news saying, if you get the vaccine, you will not get COVID-19 and you will not be able to transmit it, right? Numerous. And Piers Morgan, right, our beloved Guna supporter, he was gung-ho condemning all the non-vaccinated people, that you're putting other people at risk, even if you're not at risk of becoming severely ill by coronavirus, right, by COVID-19, you may pass it on to somebody else because you're not vaccinated. And that was all a hoax. It was all a lie. And where did the lie come from? Can anybody remember if any of the pharmaceutical companies made that actual claim? And did Fauci make that claim? And now that it's come out, should somebody's got to be fired?
No
Is
one's
it
gonna
criminal? Because this affected the whole world. A lot of people
there were
lost
mandates
their
all over the world
livelihoods.
that people had to get the vaccine because they were endangering the lives of their co-workers, because the vaccine was going to prevent them from spreading the disease. And if we're saying now that it was untrue, it was never tested for that, and that's not what it did. A, what did it do? And B, on your point, if that I was mandated to take something that wasn't going to do what it said it was going to do, you've just now, you not only have you mandated that I put this drug in my body, if I've lost my job over this mandate, which is based on something that was false and didn't work, that has to be criminal. You know, what is the statute of limitation on going back and suing? But guess what we found out way before then? They removed the liability, from the pharmaceutical companies, but not from the government. The pharmaceutical companies didn't initiate the mandate.
And by that claim, because remember, look, all the
this video is going to get taken down, by the way.
no, it's not going to get taken down.
Okay,
I guarantee it.
You guarantee?
I'll eat my hat.
You better get a really nice sugar paper hat, because I tell you,
no, I'm telling you,
we're having hat and ice next week.
Check this out, right? Mm-hmm. So all in this age of being penalized for so-called misinformation / disinformation, isn't that the very definition of misinformation and disinformation? That they actually gave wrong information, and they gave that wrong information for the purpose of an actual narrative to achieve a specific outcome. So what was propagated on all these same platforms that has been removing people's posts, restricting and censoring everybody, the censorship that has taken place, right? And the condemnation of all us so-called non-vaxxers, because hell no will I ever take that vaccine, right? And what's going on right now with all the cardiac issues going on, right? All the heart-related issues. Another footballer just retired today because of heart condition.
Mm-hmm. 24 years in Mwepu.
Mwepu. Mm-hmm. What nationality is he?
Zimbabwe.
Right?
Zaire. One of the two.
Somewhere down.
Somewhere
down south. Right? It's terrible. And who's going to pay for this? Who's going to be accountable? Are these people going to be accountable? It's a good job they did scrap that misinformation, disinformation squad, because heads would have been rolling right now. But we the people, it's up to us to take a stand and demand some scalps for this. Go ahead, Dr. Keela.
What I was going to say is, it's when people are better informed from the outset, it's harder to deceive them. And what I was recognizing a lot early on, about 2 years ago, is just how absent basic knowledge of human physiology is in the general public in the United States, but also worldwide. And it makes you question, when you go to school, whether public or private, what are they really teaching you? Because at the bare minimum, having knowledge of photosynthesis and how the body is, human and other creation, their bodies are built in a complementary way to photosynthetic plants so that we can have a symbiotic relationship. Mm-hmm. Basic knowledge of how the immune system works. Basic knowledge of how your cells use food and what food really is as opposed to what is not is so grossly absent that it highlights the level of comfort people have in not knowing. And that's scary, because they will fight tooth and nail and make and parrot claims of which they have no knowledge of the scientific basis of the claim. When you have knowledge of what the immune system is, how it works, how you can improve it or degrade it, why you do need a sleep cycle, what happens during the sleep cycle in the body to make you stronger to deal with the stressors of the day. All of that is so grossly lacking. And then people will be proud to say that I'm from a developed nation. A lot of developed nations have very ill-informed people. And a lot of what is termed developing nations have traditional cultures that are far more rich in their understanding. I don't even want to use the word understanding, of their full comprehension of science, physically and spiritually, and how the two meet. That when you start talking about you need iron to strengthen your mitochondria, you need sulfur to strengthen your mitochondria, you need copper. People look at you so blankly because they're thinking of metals. They're not thinking of the plant corollaries in that are conjugated in carbon that makes it okay for us to eat.
Bioavailable.
Those metals, bio metal. Okay, they don't, the organified metals, they don't have knowledge of that. So when someone like you has healthy supplements, because they've been so programmed to think medication instead of food as medicine, and understand when you see a green plant or a red fruit or a red or orange or yellow vegetable or a dark purple, blue or black fruit or vegetable, what code is in that food? They have no knowledge. You could put it right in front of them and they'd have no clue. And that's dangerous when you trust chemicals more than the creation that was put here so that you would function well within that creation. It's scary.
Right.
Because they'll fight you tooth and nail to defend science, but not the plants, not the trees, not the water, not the soil.
Right, and this is the thing, the way how the technological world works right now is that if you can't prove something, it means it's not real. Whereas, no, I can eat this mango. I don't know the pathway, the mediation and the pathways that it takes to make me feel good, but I know I feel good. I can't prove the pathways, the mediation that takes place, but according to the science, well, you don't have any proof. And if you don't have any proof, you can't make the claim, right? So here we are where the third world or developing countries, the indigenous peoples, the locals, the natives, they have systems. They might not be able to articulate how the system works, right? What mechanisms are in place and whatnot. They can't give you that. They can't articulate that, but it functions. Whereas where science is, and there's hypothesis and there's antithesis and all this stuff where you get two scientists in the same room who are studying the same subject, they'll go head to head. They can't agree, right? And that's what science is that, it has to be replicated and we have to be able to distinguish what's going on and, duplicate it or replicate it time and time again and show these results, and that's science. Whereas in nature, it's like, well, I ate this and I feel good now. I was sick. I ate some of this shit over here. Now I feel good. Therefore, it was good. That worked for me. Well, prove it.
And it becomes a challenge. I recognize it becomes a challenge even for people in the healthcare industry that may not still have close ties with their traditional food systems, their traditional faith systems. What happens is Western medicine is great when it comes to acute management of emergencies. But when it comes to maintaining a healthy state, it falls short. Right. Because the profit is in the treatment, not in the resolution.
Of course.
And I think it's not until you get further in that you start to sometimes recognize that and you go, oh my goodness, I didn't know this.
Yeah.
And then you have choices to make.
Yeah, and I think as well, we're talking about the general public and where we are in terms of awareness and understanding of health. And you made a great point. And, you know, it's funny, I think about this all the time, how, you know, what are they teaching kids in school, right? You do biology, you do the anatomy class, the physiology class. It's literally one slide. You go through the slide, you know, the hip bone is connected to the thigh bone, right? And you move it on, right? And it's amazing how little we know, again, what you said about our own physiology, to the point that if we had learned a bit more of that and someone says to you, hey, you know, there's this drug. And when you study that drug, you realize that drug is derived from some plant, some herb, some biological entity, right? But then it's synthesized and it's enhanced and it's isolated, and now it's, you know, extremely potent because they've isolated that one compound out of that, you know, that whatever plant it is. However, now that it's isolated, it doesn't have the the balanced, I forget the term, the compounds that balance it within that plant. So now, yes, it's very potent. It will knock you out, or it will get you high, or make you hot, or make you cold very quickly. But because it's lacking that other balancing compound, it's now extremely dangerous, because now your body has no mechanism to bring you down from that situation to put you in. So you're right. In an emergency, yes, stick in the adrenaline, get your heart pumping, right? But now you've got this excess adrenaline in your body. And I think patients that go through adrenaline shots spend the next days or weeks trying to come down from the adrenaline. So in an emergency, of course, you'll take it because it's stage 5. It's an emergency. You know, you're going to die if you don't do this. Of course, if you need surgery and it's stage 5, you have to cut this growth out of your body. You've got no choice. What you're talking about, Dr. Keeler, and what you're talking about, Dr. Amsu, is that we've had 25 years to ensure that that growth didn't happen in the first place, by not eating certain things, by not imbibing certain things, by not exposing ourselves, because we didn't understand the anatomy and physiology. When, you know, we don't look at the ingredients, we don't realize that every single thing you put in your mouth is a drug. That's how I was not raised, but my mom taught us. Everything you put in your mouth is potentially a drug. It's potentially a compound that can make you or break you, every single thing. So when we were kids eating Hubba Bubba, chewing gum, and all those different sweets, they call them candy in America, we were told it's just sugar. Oh, it's just sugar. Different coloring, different flavoring, but ostensibly just sugar. Oh, sugar's harmless. Oh, that comes from sugar cane. I remember in school, we learned that sugar comes from sugar cane. We were sold. We didn't know there were 67 different types of sugar back then. And now there are probably hundreds of different types of sugar that have been isolated and genetically modified, and what that can do to the body. So absolutely, guys. And I think this is central to the conversations we have on these calls, right? People, you know, may or may not be aware of the supplements that we create. Dr. Keeler, I know you're a supplement expert. You know, you create all these great supplements for hair and skin. And we have all of these, you know, ingestible sublingual supplements. What do they really mean? Why do we need to have them? You know, because if you understand the physiology, understand the food industry that's out there, we are literally being poisoned every day by what we eat.
It's an illusion.
Right?
It's an illusion, right? So we who live in the first world, the industrialized world, we live in the United States, and we think we have an abundance. But walk into Kroger, walk into Walmart, walk into walk into Whole Foods, right? How many foods would we actually recommend? Somebody walks into Walmart, and you have this massive Walmart, and there's all these aisles of all these so-called foods. How many of them would we actually eat?
How many aisles do we go down? Even in Whole Foods.
Even in Whole Foods.
And real talk, I go to Whole Foods, Dr. Amsu. I think I visit 2 aisles out of the whole store. And
two
it's really
aisles, and
then
it's a section of an aisle.
Right.
This particular, this square out of the whole store.
Yeah.
On two aisles.
I've never filled a whole cart.
Right.
Well, because the price. To be fair, right.
But how many things? But when I go farmer's market now,
you're loading up, right?
Loading up. When I go to where there is actual Whole Foods, where there's produce, right, and I have to discount even the conventionally grown foods because, you know, are they GMO or not? Are they organic? Are they wildcrafted? So if they're conventionally grown, that's out of the window, right? If it's not organic, it's out of the window. And if it's not wild, you know, if it's not organic or wild, it's out of the window. So even though I go to farmer's market and it's all green and it's all these beautiful colors, it's all from all over the world, even then, there's don't get that.
Yeah.
With them apples, nope, don't get that. Them grapes, nope.
Well,
seedless.
I told you.
I didn't even talk about the seedless.
Yeah. I told you I noticed that going to the farmer's market, there are fewer and fewer organic
Options.
choices, even in the farmer's market, right?
Yeah.
Even they are
Can't
bending
find the
to
organic
the-
raw pumpkin seeds.
Most apples in the world are GM apples, and they've been GM for a very long time. Most apples and fruits are actually patented, designed fruits by companies. They even have company names, down to, you know, Granny Smith and all the rest of it. These are fruits that were designed to be repeatable, to be marketable, right? Because they could guarantee the crunch, they could guarantee the flavor, and they could guarantee the tartness. So they basically ostensibly genetically modified them. Most apples are branded. So you're not even getting, you know, real fruit, real food, real whole foods. And that's the world we're living in. So when we talk about this stuff, guys, and, you know, we're the tinfoil wearing conspiracy parrots and conspiracy theorists, and the evidence is out there, who's really crazy? Now, we can forgive our families and, you know, most people because, look, you said it's an illusion. You know, we're living in the matrix, right? People simply don't know. We try and
There's
educate.
an abundance of bad foods or toxins
right.
that are passing themselves off
Right.
as being foods.
But here's the thing, guys. How long are we going to hide behind the veil of ignorance? How long can we say we didn't know, we didn't hear? No, you knew. There was enough information out there, even from the mainstream, that tells you that the food is poisonous, right? Otherwise, we wouldn't need all this medication. But I think people choose the easy road, Dr. Keela, Dr. Amsu. And that's one of the things that we're battling against even more so than, you know, trying to educate everyone to become a doctor. It's not going to happen. But just waking up to the idea that the reason they're getting sick is because of what's been put into their bodies. It's frightening that they don't want to hear it. And, you know, I guess all we can do is keep spreading the word.
They have redefined the meaning of food.
Right.
So that it will incorporate things like McDonald's.
That aren't food, that are
you know, these processed substances, these processed compounds that they present and, you know, throw it in a microwave, stick it in the oven for 25 minutes and, you know, here you go, you got a meal. It's an illusion. And it's a toxic illusion. And, you know, Dr. Keela, I'll bring you in now.
I was just going to say, when most people look at food, they just say, oh, I have a taste for this, I have a taste for that, but they don't understand why they may have a taste for it. So, for instance, what is an apple? No, I'll pick one that's more male-centered, but also deals with sun protection. What is a tomato? So it has seeds. It grows out the ground, so it's a plant. It has seeds, so it's a fruit. It has a reddish orange or yellow color, which means it's loaded with retinols. And there are a number of retinols, a number of beta carotenes around. But some of those are like lycopene, which are anti-cancer, right? Lycopene also helps absorb and diffuse high energy UVB sunlight. So, which means it is a capacitor, just like melanin, just like chlorophyll. And so it can diffuse high energy so you don't get burned. You literally can be outside, get the benefits of sunlight and not burn. It has vitamin C, which facilitates iron absorption in the gut, particularly in the duodenum of the gut, which is the first part of the small intestine. Not all minerals are absorbed throughout the entire gut based on the physiology of that section of the gut, the enzymes available in that section of the gut, particularly the brush border, which is like the surface area of the gut that has all these finger projections, and then there are enzymes coating all of those areas as well as within the cells. It has a particular pH, a somewhat acidic pH, and necessarily slightly acidic pH to facilitate iron absorption. Yes, you're right, Mara, villi. I was trying not to use the scientific terms, but yes, you're absolutely right. Villi and microvilli, which are they are finger projections. So the villi are finger projections of the cells that line the gut, and then they have smaller finger projections on each finger, and those are called microvilli. So imagine the gut being a tube of a certain length, but when you open it up, it has a surface area, but then it surface area is multiplied geometrically with the villi and microvilli. So it may have the surface area of a football field. You need that much surface to absorb nutrients. Mm-hmm. And then the pH of that tomato facilitates absorption of the nutrients in that fruit or vegetable. So that's the thing people don't understand. Oftentimes, when you eat processed food, it throws off your gastric pH and your intestinal pH, which makes it even more difficult to absorb the nutrients you need to keep your cells running, because those nutrients act like parts of a car. They act as spark and stabilizer. And if you don't have the right pH at the right portion of your gut, you're not going to absorb the nutrients. So you may feel full, but your cells are starving. And sometimes when people still feel hungry after an ample meal of processed food, what they don't understand is that they haven't absorbed anything.
No food. Mm-hmm.
It's not food.
Mm-hmm. And it brings no energy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's the thing, is that there's so many people, right? Even in our families, we always talk about our families because, you know, that's only people we can get what we're talking about nowadays, right? That we try our best to convince them, you need to stop eating these poisons, these toxins. But because everyone else is doing it, and, you know, we're gonna talk about, you know, parents, and I say parents, right? Because I can't say mums, right? Because we might get cancelled for that. But parents who poison their children, they poison their families. They are willing participants in poisoning, especially with the amount of information that's out there. We, you know, on my IG, I've done a whole bunch of posts about what's in Cheerios, what's in Fruit Loops, what's in the microwavable popcorn, you know, all these toxins, carcinogens, and all these inflammatory foods or toxins that are out there, and people will watch it, but they'll go and buy it for their child. Oh, I don't eat that, but you go and check their groceries and it's in there. Well, what? Why you got that in your groceries? Oh, that's for the kids. And well, that causes ADHD. So you're actually giving your child a neurological, behavioral problem because you're feeding your child these toxins. And from, you know, there's a saying, it's not a sin until you know better. You're not committing a sin until you know it's wrong. And when you commit that act again, now it's a sin because you knew it was bad, right? People who know these are neurotoxins, excitotoxins and whatever, and it's bad for, especially for child neurological development, right? It impedes neurological development in children, and then you still go and give it to your child. It's like there's no excuse for it. But because everyone does it and there isn't a law written to forbid it, it's allowed. And the government ain't going to say anything because you know why? Because at some point the pharmaceutical industry is going to swoop in with its cape, with a big Batman cape, and rescue the day. By here's some Ritalin for your child. Mm-hmm. You know, here's some Prozac for mum. So the amount of women who are on antidepressants and anxiety medications because they've had a whole lifetime of ingesting all these toxins. It's amazing, you know, and no one doesn't really speak about it, but all of a sudden we have mental illness awareness month, or whatever, and it does nothing. It's all rhetoric. It doesn't do anything. Sponsored by Pfizer or sponsored by Burger King. Sponsored by, you know, the microwave popcorn company.
Right.
It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it's and I should do some research on the whole, I think, benzodiazepine industry, right? And of course, I just looked it up to remind myself because I was looking at it a while ago because it's a really nice word actually, benzodiazepine. But if you think about the wealth of drugs that come from that, or anxiety, depression drugs, and I think since probably the 60s or 70s, how that's ballooned. And now, they're literally giving out like candy. You have people who are literally hooked on this stuff. They're dependent upon it. They can't get through their day without, knocking back a benzo, and it makes you wonder, what's become of society if we allow the pharmaceutical industry, the food industry, which I mention every single week on these calls because it won't go away, so I won't go away, that have convinced the world that what they're pushing is good, right and exact and normal and healthy and nutritious. And it's actually not. Not only is it not nutritious, it's actually killing you. So you talked about parents that are poisoning their kids. Well, you're feeding your kids ADHD. You're feeding your kids ADD. You're feeding your kids anxiety. You're feeding your kids all these stressing chemicals and compounds. And so, don't be surprised when you get the letter from school that your child's bouncing off the walls. Interesting thing.
Gender dysphoria, being spoon-fed to children.
Right.
It goes on. The list goes on.
So listen, guys, if you have any questions, we've got a little bit of time here before they kick us out of here, before the gremlins come back. Feel free to ask your questions to Dr. Amsu, Dr. Keela, even me. If you want, a real serious answer, you can ask me. And you can ask us in the chat or on IG, or you can drop us a message. We did get a couple questions in by email. I was hoping that they'd be on the call so we can answer them by email. We can answer them here and they can go back and watch the recording. But it's always best to come onto the call. Again, I want to apologize for the technical issues at the top of the hour, beyond our control. Or maybe not. Maybe it is out of control. We just don't know what we're doing. We need to hire new people. We need to get rid of these two and get some professionals in here so we can get these sessions going. But listen, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, please share them on the chat or in the IG. And if you're quiet, we can go home early. It's Friday. Dr. Amson and I regularly go binge drinking on Friday. So you guys are holding us back from that. But I want to talk to Maura. I know Maura might be busy, but I want to talk to Maura because I haven't spoken to Maura for a while. I want to know how Maura's doing, if she can unmute her camera and her mic, unless she's otherwise unable to. Maura, are you there? Maybe she stepped away from her machine.
I'm here.
Hey, Maura,
Hi.
how you doing?
Hey, Maura.
Good.
Long time no see.
I know. Actually, the call was running and I was actually doing some cleaning.
Okay, it's always good. We love that nice domesticated woman. Did I say that? Person, people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm all she and her.
There
That's
you go.
it.
There you go. So how are you doing, Maura? We've not spoken for a while. How's things been going in the
I'm
Maura
good.
household?
Went on vacation, came back with a couple extra pounds,
It's okay. We'll work with you.
Don't try to get us involved in your indulgences more about
No,
we don't know. We don't know.
I'm owning up.
She's fessing up.
No, but you're saying like we partake. No, we don't. We're here to judge you, Maura.
Where was your
That's
vacation, Maura?
What do you say?
Where did you go?
Oh, Grenada. I went home.
Oh, Grenada.
Okay.
You're Grenadian. Why do I think you were from a real island? I'm playing with you.
Never.
Okay, so you're in Grenada. So that's where your family's from. So what were you eating in Grenada? Tell us what was the experience like. Please don't tell me you're eating Kentucky out there. We're not having it.
No. Not me, but the family does. They do.
Yeah.
But I had a lot of soursop. Oh my gosh. The sugar apples came in just as I was leaving. Sugar apple was coming in. They had cashews. They had a lot of that.
Question: are you able to bring food into America from Grenada, from the Caribbean? Do they still allow that sort of thing?
Yeah, they do. When
Really?
they say, and if you have any produce, please hand it over. Not one man saying nothing.
I told you what happened to me, right? Coming back from Hawaii one time. So I didn't realize that from Hawaii coming to America, they don't allow any vegetation unless it's been they have some, you buy the orchid flowers from the gift shop that they allow into America. Anything else, when I say anything else, I'm talking, they tracked down a sandwich that I bought because it had tomato in it. And they wouldn't allow tomato from Hawaii into the mainland America. They are that strict. And, there are a number of reasons for that. So I was just wondering if they still allow, I remember back when I was at school.
Yeah, I had mangoes.
Yeah.
I came up with mangoes. You don't say nothing, that's it.
Yeah, they don't have the sniffer dogs and all that. Because from Africa, they
have the
down.
dogs leaving from JFK, but there wasn't anything coming back in.
Right. Okay, beautiful. And what's the weather like out there?
Oh, 75 all the time.
Right. I see you come back with an accent.
Always.
You were all American like a week ago. And it's funny, whenever I go home and come back, people say, hey, Mike, what happened to your accent? It's like, by way of osmosis, when you're there, you have to sort of blend. And it's fun, though. We do a little code switching. So we're glad you're back. We're glad you had a good time out there. But tell us about these pounds. How can we help with these pounds? What pounds did you put on, Maura?
8 pounds.
You said a couple.
Yeah. A couple is 2 with friends.
Just did it 4 times, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's from the yam and the dasheen and all the good food and and drink.
Yep, the breadfruit, the oil dong. Yep.
Yeah, your accent's totally changed. I love it. But anyway, Mark, I know you're an expert, so I know you know what to do to get those pounds off. The good ones, the bad pounds off. You're going to keep the good pounds, right?
Yeah.
So, Maura, I know you're quite a slender person, correct?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, I stalk your IG. What I see is rather slender. But I always find it interesting, people who are slender, who are actually mindful of what they eat, mindful of their weight, mindful of what they put in. And I think it's very commendable, because a lot of people who are slender maybe think that they're immune from a lot of these conditions, right? Because I'm slim, I've got a high metabolism and all the rest of it. I don't know, Dr. Keela, Dr. Amsu, is that it? Is it just having a high metabolism enough to say, well, I'm healthy because, I burn it off because I'm skinny?
No.
Skinny people are dying, right?
Yeah, skinny people are dying because if what you're putting into your body is toxic, even though you're metabolizing, that means that it's getting into your cells. You're actually making use of it. Right? So it's very important to keep toxins low as possible, and to keep actual nutrients as high as possible that your body needs and can use, because our bodies have a way, if we don't use it, we filter it out, we flush it out, we get rid of it, right? Which is good. That's a nice mechanism to have. But the problem is when we metabolize toxins, meaning the toxins now are used in our cells because they mimic certain nutrients that our bodies may be lacking, and that's what the whole pharmaceutical industry is about. It's about synthesizing and isolating molecules to mimic what nutrients do. So it's still nutrient therapy as far as your cells see it. It's just like with different types of sugars. Your body does not make certain differentiations when it comes to sugars, right? So it will use something the same way, one form of a sugar, the same way it will try to utilize glucose, and there's different types of sugars, obviously, but our bodies have mechanisms in place to utilize these different types of sugars. But if it's not getting one form of sugar, it's going to use another type of sugar to try to do the same job, or try to take something to do it, which might actually be detrimental. So, because you're metabolizing and you're slim, it doesn't mean that your cells are healthy.
Right.
And like my weight in like my winter weight is maybe 10 pounds heavier than my summer weight.
Because you're not getting out as much, right? I'm assuming, or you stuff your face more in the winter.
No, I don't. I don't. It's
so
just
I just
like this is what's going on. This is what's going on. But I don't put on fat. Maybe, but it's weird because it's kind of weird because I drink more water in the summer, and summer helps with muscle. Helps with muscle, which is kind of weird.
But you're bound to be home more in the winter. You're not out as much walking. You don't walk as much. You don't.
I mean, I drive anyway.
Right. You don't walk at all, do you?
I walk in the gym.
Useless individual.
I walk in between apparatus.
Absolute useless individual. Do not follow Dr. Amsu.
I walk in the building.
Now I've got a great question coming. We have a great question coming on the YouTube from Kim Chi. She's asking, I think probably based on what we're discussing just now, can we detox a toddler's brain? Can we detox a toddler's brain? And if so, which of our supplements would help with something like that? First of all, toddler's brain, okay, it's a little bit nebulous, but Dr. Amsu, let's kick off on,
All right, first of all, we don't detox anything. we provide resources for the body to function as it should do. So a toddler's brain, I mean, we have supplements that will help with neurological development, if that's the question.
Well, I'm going to ask Kim, if you can hear us, is there a specific condition that you're concerned about? Because, you know, where I said it was nebulous, if we're talking about pediatric health, right? If we're talking about, you know, can we...
Seizures, epilepsy,
can we, you know, if we can poison our kids by feeding them toxins, can we then reverse that?
Yes,
and the general
absolutely.
answer is yes, right? But if you're asking for a specific condition, please let us know in the chat.
I mean, we have D3, right, which is very popular for parents for their children because it tastes so good, and we have Neuroplex, which helps with neurons. It's neurogenerative, so it helps with generating healthy brain cells. So, you know, but detoxification is a process that the body does naturally. And I was going to say something to your analogy earlier on, Dr. Keeler, about you know, the villi and microvilli in the stomach, right? So that's likened unto rainforests here on the planet. So there's a whole ecological system that exists in rainforests, why it flourishes so much fruit and so much vegetation, and the medicinal properties of stuff grown in rainforests are far superior to scarce vegetation. That, you know, we have to basically, like, we live in societies where there are farms, where you have to cultivate the land. There's no cultivation in a rainforest because it's naturally, there's a natural ecology there, and it's full of these fingers or trees, right, that have their branches and their leaves, right, and many different forms of life form, right, depend upon the moistness, you know, the textures, the fruits, the sap that comes out of these trees, the roots, the moss, even the yeast, the fungi that grow under. This is all so this is the gut of the earth. And then the seas and the rivers and the streams, that's the lymphatic system. You know, so the earth has its way how it preserves its ecology and how it cleans itself through its streams. You know, even mountain ranges. You know, if you're watching Lord of the Rings, you see how mountains are very important to the ecology as well.
Of course,
the minerals,
controlling, minerals,
you know,
and
so
even wind flow and things like that.
As above, so below. So above, we have this vast earth, and how the earth deals with preserving itself is how we as humans, we're supposed to preserve ourselves, you know. And so when it comes to detoxification, this is something that every night, and Dr. Keeler, you were talking about the importance of sleep earlier on. So sleep isn't just about rest, it's also about detoxification. It's also about assimilating nutrients, you know, we actually grow in our sleep. That's where we do all our growth. You know, so that's why during, you know, summer vacation, that's where you see a kid and he's like 5 foot, and then by the end of summer he's 6 foot because he had so much sleep. That's when people go through growth spurts, is during summer, you know, during vacations. So I know you had more to add, Dr. Keeler. Go ahead.
So the thing is, understand, if you listen to carefully to what Dr. Armstrong, what Mr. Briggs are saying, is that it's the science of the body. Let's take the word science out. The way we are made, right, is the same as the rest of creation. We are just essentially mobile plants. We absorb sunlight. We convert that sunlight. Particularly pigments in our skin convert that sunlight. Plants have pigments in their skin, chlorophyll, that convert sunlight. They act as a photovoltaic cell, like those flat solar cells you see near buildings. Yeah. Blades of grass do the same thing. Different pigments function differently for a reason. And I don't know if I've lived on an island that didn't have rivers. Wow. If you've never lived on a piece of land that never had rivers, you do not know what daily danger you're in until tropical rainy season comes through and there's nowhere for that water to go.
Right.
It bulldozes everything. And if you do not think water is a force in and of itself, water is a physical force as well as an electromagnetic force. So as a physical force, it can tear steel and break concrete. I've seen it done. It literally changed my route home from school. I used to have a 10-minute commute. It became an hour commute because the water off the mountain generates that much force as it goes towards lower elevation, gravity. Our bodies experience that. When we don't sleep, our lymphatic systems get overloaded because they get overloaded with toxins because our liver can't clear those toxins. And that clearance, that detox happens when we're sleeping. The liver literally changes machinery. So think of machinery as you have two essential big rooms of machinery in a factory. Day shift makes one kind of product, night shift makes another kind of product. Day shift makes a product and the waste of that is processed by the night shift and then gotten rid of during the day. But if we don't sleep or we're working constant night shifts, those toxins never filter back properly to the liver. They pool in our lymphatic tissues and they draw water to them. That's why by morning, if you've worked night shift consistently, you will have swollen feet, swollen ankles, swollen legs, painful knees, and eventually painful hips and back problems. If you work night shift long enough, your lymphatic system won't be able to clear even more cellular waste. And if your cells bathe in cellular waste too long, they start to malfunction. That's where you get tumors. And when you build up the attacks on normal cells, a tumor is essentially a cell adapting to an acidic environment. A cancer is a fully transformed tumor cell. Okay? So what ends up happening is you accumulate enough toxins, you literally change the behavior of your cells. And that's why there can't be any such thing as a cheat day, because you end up cheating yourself. The other piece is when, for instance, if you don't drink enough water, you literally change your body's ability. You lessen your body's ability to deal with high energy attack. So water is a capacitor. It has the ability to store a lot of charge, like the capacitors that we use to reboot our car engines. That's essentially what water is. But you don't need to recharge it. Mm-hmm. But you do need to recharge the water in your body because we constantly expire water with every breath. We perspire water constantly. We're always perspiring. We're just not aware of it. We urinate water. When we have bowel movements, we lose water. We're constantly losing water. And when you are dehydrated, if you think of dehydration as a loss of capacity to handle high energy waste, high energy inundation, you will understand that hydration is not just so that my skin doesn't look ashy. Hydration is so that my cells don't get overloaded with so much energy that they burn themselves up. So we have to think about food differently and really see it for what it is. It's about maintaining energy balance, because without that balance, we burn. Case in point, in a lot of ancient African construction, in the more tropical regions, I'm not talking about East Africa, where you have a lot of pyramids that have sharp edges. Those edges function for a purpose. Wherever you have edges, you have concentrations of charge. Wherever you have smooth, homogeneous surfaces, you have a dissemination, an equal handling of the load of charge. In a lot of ancient African architecture, you will find a lot of the buildings are rounded. They're cylindrical. And even the roofs are domed. And you will also see that in a lot of indigenous American construction, wigwams. They were trying to disseminate charge equally through the home, electromagnetic charge. If you look at the surfaces of our bodies, there are very few areas, except for certain bony prominences, that have sharp or pointed or pyramidal shaped structures. Most everything is smooth and cylindrical. It helps distribute high energy, high charge evenly. Melanin does it. This is the thing. If you bleach your skin or you don't eat enough dark leafy green vegetables, you end up with the same problems, because you need the amino acid tyrosine to make melanin. And the best source of tyrosine is dark leafy green vegetables. And if you don't eat enough of those, which often have a lot of water, not only do you dehydrate so you can't evenly distribute charge throughout the body, but you lack the melanin to do the heavier load of distributing electromagnetic charge from the sun. And that's why we burn.
Right.
You know, Dr. Healy, it's interesting. And again, thanks for that. Always wonderful breakdowns and analogies. And so I took my son actually out to it was a seminar on African architecture at Georgia Tech, which is Georgia's, technical college. It's one of the leading technical colleges in the country, not plugging it. And they were discussing ancient African architecture and how there's a resurgence of, it's not really a segue, but maybe it is. There's a resurgence of architecture in the Western world that's using ancient African techniques to now construct houses, right? And there's a big thing now in Ghana where they're using types of mud. So types of mud and clay are the best materials for building houses, right? In tropical places, because they're keeping the heat when it's cool. They keep it cool when it's hot, right? There are no toxins. It's abundant. You can, form it into any shapes. And it's got a whole bunch of other properties as well. But one of the interesting things they were talking about is round houses. When you have a round house and a round room in a house with no corners, it doesn't collect dust. There are no cobwebs, and energy flows around these rooms. Corners trap energy. And it's really interesting to say that rooms are supposed to be round. They talked about, they had some ancient Japanese,
Feng Shui.
Feng Shui is the art of sort of, really reading and monitoring that, right? But the rooms, you're not supposed to have corners in your house. So I guess, just sort of echoing off of that. Listen, guys, I know we're pressed for time. Laverne, so good to see you, Laverne. Well, we can't really see, but we know you're here. How are you doing, Laverne? I see you got your hand raised as well.
Doing good.
Oh, your line sounds a bit crispy there.
Oh, I said I'm doing good.
Excellent. What can we do you for today, Laverne?
Oh, no, I was just listening to Dr. Keeler and did excellent. She always does an excellent job. You guys do a great job breaking down, explaining. I wish more people would come on here. But anyways, she's talking about, the thing is, my question is the dark green leafy vegetables, and not spinach, of course. cooking it. That's my problem. I'm like, I feel like they're like I overcook them sometimes. And my question is like, you probably said this over and over again, how you cook those things, because you want to get the nutrients, but then you don't want to overcook them. I'm not going to eat a salad all the time. Truly, honestly speaking, I don't like salad, but I would do it. And so what I do, I juice. And then, I heard one time Dr. John Armstrong said that, he had something about juicing. He said something about juicing. Not that it was entirely bad, but juicing. Because I feel like juicing it is where I get all the nutrients from the vegetables, but of course I'm extracting the fiber too. So I'm right. Just, my question, like how preparing them, how?
Well,
because
when you cook these green leafy vegetables, it's not supposed to be like boiled. You're supposed to basically just soften it so that you don't have to chew so hard. And it's that simple. So it's not. And I know there's common practices around the world, right? Especially with Europeans, where they make a lot of soups, where but with soup you're drinking everything. So even if the nutrients come out all the way from, you're not basically losing the nutrients because it's in the soup. The problem is when you cook something in water and you overcook it, but then you pour the water, you drain it. So all the nutrients that gets into the water, you basically throw it away, and you're left with a shell of what you should really have. So, we're supposed to steam our vegetables, right? Really and truly, we're supposed to steam them, where it does crack the shells, right, and release nutrients, but it doesn't flush them away.
And very quickly, Dr. Anderson, Dr. Keeler, keep me honest here. The way I've understood it, coming from literally my mother teaching me and my grandparents. I had a grandparent who was in Ghana, had all this beautiful, natural, organic, wonderful fruit and vegetable around him. And he taught me one day, he said he's gotten to a certain age now, he doesn't eat what everyone else eats in the house. So this is all organic, natural food. He goes, no. When they have to cook his food separate, he calls it flashing. So he puts the spinach in the pan just long enough, like I say, Dr. Warren, to break the cell, but it still maintains a little bit of crunch, right?
Dr. Warren.
Did I call Dr.
We were
with Dr. Warren yesterday, and I was talking to Dr. Warren. He's another doctor friend of ours. Just flash it so it still maintains the crunch. And Dr. Laverne, I'm going to borrow your question to ask Dr. Keelan and Dr. Amso a question I've always had as well. And it's this idea of overcooking vegetables. Can you undercook a vegetable?
It depends on the vegetable, yes. So there are things like,
I'm asking, right? Because if you can eat it raw, how can you undercook it? Right.
There's only certain types of vegetables should be eaten raw.
Okay.
Certain you have to cook. So it depends on the vegetable. So there are always exceptions to the rules. It's like you can't say, here's how you do this. It's like, when people talk about, I'm raw and whatever, and it's like, well, I'm eating an apple here. This is raw. Oh, no, but that's not really raw. Yes, it is. It's an apple.
Absolutely
right?
Raw.
So you don't cook apples, really. But then you can cook apples. Else you wouldn't have apple crumble and apple whatever.
Which would be
right?
tragedy.
So you can cook fruit. You can eat fruit raw. You can eat certain vegetables raw. It depends on the vegetable.
That was what's happened. We're listening.
Yeah. This man's going through his IG while man's chatting,
People message us questions about health.
Yeah, so it depends. So there is no one rule fits all. It's just like the old adage, everybody's different.
Yeah. So
it depends on the properties of the plant.
Of the plant, okay.
And the structure.
So Laverne, let's carry on. I know I jumped in there because I've been thinking the same thing recently, for a long time, about vegetables cooking and overcooking and undercooking. When do you need, or when are you doing one or the other? Because I've been guilty of overcooking. Sometimes I'm cooking and I'm just cooking and cooking and cooking. I realize I've been over this pot for an hour and the vegetables have been in there the whole time. I've just killed them. It turns into a sludge, you know. But when you go to a really high-end restaurant and you order food, they cook it like 7 minutes. They've cooked this whole meal. So wait, why does that take me an hour and 20 minutes? Because I'm overcooking it. They know the techniques of keeping the flavor and the nutrients in the food, flashing it and cooking it really quickly. Even casseroles and stuff aren't supposed to take hours and hours and hours, you know. So sorry, Laverne, carry on.
Right, and the reason why your grandfather was so particular is that his digestion is going to wane as he's getting older.
Course,
so it's like you have, and that's the thing, you know, when we're kids, we were eating all kinds of rubber and plastic foods, and, you know, think about all the sweets that we ate, and they were stretchy and sugary, and, you know, even now what kids have, these sweet and sour stuff and that.
Whirlies, toffee and all
right.
that, yeah.
But we see the fallout now because it's so much of it that we are getting the ADHD and, you know, the all the neurological issues that's happening. But as we get older and our bodies become less robust, we have to become more particular. You know, and it's that simple.
Laverne.
Yes.
Yes.
So Dr. You took my time. I'm sorry. But okay. So why, Dr. you said there's some vegetables that we can't cook and some you can't. I mean, you can use raw, some you can't. You never chose an example. I mean, like the squash. I mean, squash is something that's kind of hard.
Right. So and there are and think about it as well in the terms of there are winter vegetables, right? Winter vegetables. And winter vegetables, we always cook them because when somebody says, all right, when is the best time for me to be raw? It's like, all right, go raw in the summer. Do more raw stuff in the summer, and winter, cook your, you know, get into the kitchen and actually heat it up and whatever. So even like quinoa is a superfood, but quinoa will destroy your intestines if you try to do raw quinoa. If you put quinoa, the seeds, right, especially them red seeds, it's basically like bird food. You need to sprout it, right? So it needs to be soaked in water. Sometimes you don't have to actually cook something. You can just soak it in water until it softens up and it cracks the shell, right? But applying heat just expedites the process. So
okay, go ahead.
So, you know, quinoa is something that I always use as an example of you got to cook it. You got to cook it in water. You got to sprout it, right? Rice, whether it's wild rice, you know, we don't really condone white rice and whatever, but it's the same thing with rice. You don't eat rice in its hard form.
You wouldn't do it, no. What about chia seeds, Dr. MC? Precious Rare is asking.
Chia seeds are excellent, but again, you add water because they if you want something that can dehydrate your body, eat chia seeds. That will dry you up. That will dry you out. So chia seeds are very nutritious, but you have to make sure that if you do consume chia seeds, that you drink a lot, you hydrate. You have to hydrate. Else you will fall into the problems Dr. Keeler was just speaking about the conductivity of your body. Now, go ahead, Dr. Keeler.
Oh, I may have to switch my background just so you can see. Here, I'll exit out my background so that you'll be able to see. So this is about a 16 or 20 ounce. I'm drinking what Ms. Laverne would say is emulsified vegetables right now.
Right.
Okay. So it's about a 16 to 20 ounce. I only put 1 teaspoon of chia seeds in this because their capacity to hold water is so great.
Right.
You don't want to put buku chia seeds in a glass of water because it will act like a dry cracker in your system. Like what Dr. Amsu is saying. So that's what I was saying. When people really get to know their bodies and then they really get to know.
Dr. Keeler, by dry cracker, you're talking about the food, not the person.
No, I was talking about the food.
Dr.
Oh my
Keeler,
goodness. Man, you're going to get me in problem.
Let him suck you in.
Remember who I'm talking to.
You let him suck.
No, it's seriously like a piece of bread, right? The gluten in the bread will attract water. The natural protein coat surrounding the seed. So let's say it like this. Some seeds have their own natural protein coat such that when they are in moist soil, that protein coat will absorb water and help sprout that seed. Chia seeds are like that. Okay. The opposite, flax seeds are not. Plus they're estrogenic, but chia seeds have their protein coat on the outside. That's why we don't need to break them down to be able to really to glean the nutrients. Our stomach acid helps degrade the protein coat and then will help degrade the outer shell. The irony is this: to keep things super simple, the way seeds are constructed is the same way that a lot of bacteria are constructed and some parasites. When they go dormant for a while, they develop a shell, just like a moth or a butterfly. When the conditions are right, the right humidity, right sunlight, all of that, then you will see them sprout and bloom. It's the same whether it's animal or people. It's this very same thing. So when you want to glean the nutrients from a seed, you have to know what seed you're dealing with and then put it with the right foods to make that seed and the nutrients be accessible to your body, bioavailable to your body.
Absolutely. Excellent breakdown. And there was a couple other things on the YouTube. I want to give Laverne an opportunity. Laverne, go ahead, Laverne.
I'm going to finish right now. Okay, so kale is one that I find it's like that is one you can use raw or juice, right? And also cook.
Yes.
Okay, because that and collard green. I mean that stuff don't. It's like how long do I have to cook this for it to get to the point where I can actually eat it? But anyway, that's my question.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Laverne. Great question.
Thank you.
Don't go anywhere. So listen, I want to go back to Kim. She asked a question about the child's brain. Now, the conditions she's concerned about were autism and, if I'm reading this correctly, absent ADHD, absent seizures. That may be a typo. But basically autism, ADHD, and seizures, right?
Right.
Now,
so it's absolutely neurological.
Right.
Right.
Okay. So I guess the general question is, what can she do, I guess, nutrition-wise, supplement-wise, to help with those conditions? Either, I'm guessing, avoid them, or if the child has it. And we've talked about this before with other children. We've helped a number of children before as well. So maybe if you give a quick overview of what generally one needs to be doing with children with those conditions.
Cut sugar out, cut out all kinds of excitotoxins. Don't buy any kind of foods that have artificial flavorings, right? Excitotoxins, because this is where they lie. Things that are high in monosodium glutamates. Be very cognizant of the glutamates that you're giving your child. There has to be there's a very fine balance between magnesium, calcium, and glutamates, right? There's a very fine-tuned balance that has to be maintained when you're dealing with your brain. And when you give excitotoxins, you give these, whether it's color, like red color 40, and these yellows and these greens and whatever that are artificial, then you have these sugars that titillate, basically excite the neurons, and they basically burn themselves out. And this is something Dr. Keeler was just talking about, the conductivity, right? There has to be conductivity. If you have any substance and there's high charge or high energy and it's not conducting, it creates a fire, an insulator. So you have insulating materials that can't conduct on their own. They need other substances to do so. So they literally burn themselves out due to lack of conductivity. And hydration is very important. The amount of glucose, the amount of cholesterol, right, is required. Cholesterol is actually great for the brain, right? But they won't, just what you was talking about earlier, Dr. Keeler, when you were saying the general public don't really know physiology. They don't know how the body works. So when they hear something like cholesterol, they immediately think bad. They don't realize how important cholesterol is for the body, for hormones, for sex hormones, for steroidal hormones.
Dr. Keeler, if you don't mind, I want to do something because I know, again, I'm mindful of the time. I think it's a great question. I think maybe, and keep me honest here, one of the questions maybe I could ask to help and maybe segue the conversation to talking about some of the root causes here. Why are some children more affected by these cytotoxins, right? The excitotoxins from the tackies and the colors and the emulsifiers than other children? Because one thing I think exacerbates people's fear, people's anxiety, and people's response to finding out that their child is maybe a little bit hyperactive or whatever, right? And then they go straight to the medications because my child is different from the other kids. Remember, they're measuring your children against other children, which, hey, to some extent may be fair. But perhaps all those other kids are dumbed down by what they're eating, right? And your child has experienced it in a different way, right? So, I guess the question is, Dr. Keeler, maybe clinically, and again, we're generalizing. Obviously, I'm not asking them to diagnose anyone in particular. Why is it that some children react so vehemently to excitotoxins where others tend not to? What may lead?
Well, just before you answer that, they all react to it. It's just what's noticed from what isn't noticed, and it's there's so many variables, so many factors involved in, and part of it is gene expression as well. It's epigenetics. Mm-hmm. What's in their environment? What other factors are contributing to that? How exposed are they to blue light as well? Because blue light is it's not something that they're actually eating, but it's a major factor of what they're exposed to. There are exposomes that are involved. So go ahead, Dr. Keeler.
So you have a number of factors like Dr. Amsu explained. So let's go from out to in. We have sociological factors where, just as example, brilliance and curiosity are looked at as positive things when they're not associated with melanated people.
Right, exactly.
And negative things when they are associated with melanated people. Okay? So oftentimes Black boys and Black girls who are of high intellect are labeled early as problem children by teachers who don't want to promote those attributes in Black children.
They're disruptive.
Right. And I can guarantee you 9 times out of 10, Mr. Breaks, Dr. Amsu, and myself were all labeled as disruptive at some point in our educational.
I was in that corner, man. I was sent to the corner so much. It was ridiculous.
I'm still in that corner.
I had my name in the corner. That was my spot.
Okay. And many people who have questions and who are asking their questions and are listening to the answers were also probably labeled as such too. Because if you have a natural curiosity about the world outside of you and certain people don't want you asking questions, then you're going to be labeled disruptive and, we have to medicate that. No, you don't. You're functioning normally. Secondly, melanin is a superconductor. That is why all your nervous systems, I didn't say nervous system, I said nervous systems in your body are melanated. Your central nervous system, the gray matter is melanated. Your heart has melanated neurons. Your glands have melanated cells. Your gut has melanated cells. Your reproductive organs and your adrenal medulla are all richly melanated, because there's a lot of electrical activity going on there. And you need melanin as a superconductor to get things there faster. Melanin is vibranium. Mm-hmm. Is the equivalent of vibranium in the Wakanda series and the equivalent of coltan in your computers and cell phones. That's the easiest way I can explain it to you. It makes things conduct very quickly. And it disseminates charge. It has a resonance structure. Resonance just means equal sharing of a load, so that nothing is too heavy for one molecule or another, one atom or another to carry. And so things flow well. The other thing is melanated systems are very dopamine sensitive. Why? Dopamine is a neurotransmitter. Melanin is related to dopamine because their core molecule is the amino acid tyrosine. To get from tyrosine to dopamine to melanin, it's all in the same pathway. So anything that feeds melanin is also going to stimulate dopamine. That is why Black people are so super sensitive to cocaine. It's a it affects dopamine signaling in the brain. What else does that? That's a drug. Refined sugars, processed sugars. So if you feed a child whose entire nervous system is fresh, new, and high functioning, anything that is an excitotoxin is going to stimulate that whole cascade of excitatory activity in all of your nervous systems. You will see a hyper child. If you feed that same child anything high in processed carbohydrates, processed sugars, which are, anytime you hear the word process, think the word unrestrained. The stuff is too strong. It's going to activate neurons that are sensitive to dopamine. So you're going to stimulate those same pathways. You're going to see an overly excited child. The best way to stabilize a child's brain with food is to give that child more stabilizer, more L-tyrosine amino acid, and that is found in your dark leafy green vegetables. Guess what else is in your dark leafy green vegetables? Magnesium. Magnesium is an electrical stabilizer for high electrical activity in every single cell. Guess what else magnesium does? It blocks calcium. When it, as a calcium blocker, it inhibits excess electrical activity, further waves of depolarization between neurons, so that you don't have this constant inundation or constant tsunami of electrical activity going on in the brain. All of that is found in your dark leafy green vegetables. Guess what else is found in your dark leafy green vegetables? Potassium. Potassium helps relax the heart and helps quiet nerve activation.
GABA.
Sodium, yeah, and GABA. And when you know which spices to add, you'll know what spices naturally have chloride in them to settle down the nervous system. So food really is medicine, but you have to see the food differently. You have to understand celery is loaded with calcium, which will help signaling in the brain. But when you balance that celery with a dark leafy green vegetable, preferably lightly cooked or raw, you're going to have clear thinking. Why? Because you have enough chloride in it to calm the brain, to help it focus. You have enough potassium from the dark leafy green vegetable to help calm the nerve signaling, right? And the heart rate. You have enough magnesium to help focus and calm calcium activation of neurotransmitter release from the end of these neurons, so you don't have these constant tsunamis, constant waves, like water waves, ocean waves of depolarization. And when you eat all of this, plus you have a superconductor in the form of melanin being produced by the L-tyrosine amino acid. That's why you don't need animal products to get your protein, because the plants make the protein from the raw materials in the soil, assisted by the soil microbiome, which is basically the bacteria and the fungus in the soil. You can get everything you need from a plant. And that eating those plants literally calms the nervous system and helps you to focus. And then on top of that, if you add a fruit to that mix, like mango, like a non-GMO banana, like a non-GMO apple, you have just enough of the fruit sugar, natural fruit sugar, to power the brain. So you end up with a child who is better fed is more calm and more focused. So they're more ready to learn and ready to make the connections and ready to retain, because you need sleep to convert chemical memory, which is short-term memory, into structural memory, which is long-term memory. You're actually making connections in the brain. And then with the exercise, the sleep helps you detoxify, and the exercise early in the morning. That's why back in the day, when I say back in the day, I say about 45 years ago, most schools, even public schools, had recess before you started class. They understood the importance of getting rid of those last bit of toxins, so that you could focus to learn in the classroom.
Yeah, Dr. Keeler, again, thank you very much for that excellent breakdown. And we always cherish all of the information that gets shared on these calls. And it's funny, there's a whole movement of mothers, and I'll say that I'm man enough to say mothers, parents that don't feed their children breakfast. And we live by intermittent fasting, because what happens is kids are sent to school having just digested or still digesting, in some cases, fried breakfast, right? Or a cereal with all the excitotoxins, and then a snack on the way to school, right? And so they walk into school already bouncing off the walls, and they're wondering why they're dozing in the first class and they can't concentrate. It's because of the toxins. Mate, they ate before they went to bed, because some kids, before they go to bed, it's some kind of warm milk and cookies, right? And the milk or hot chocolate and cookies, and it's a fake cookie. It's some fake chocolate before they go to bed, then wake up and then have some more excitotoxins. So this is the cycle. So it's very clear to see what's happening to children by what we feed them. And kids who are born and raised in countries where they don't have all of this access, or they don't culturally have all these excitotoxins in their diet, don't have those problems. Do not have those problems. I will cherish forever the time I spent going to school in Ghana. I remember, sort of in anguish why we couldn't get certain sweets and candies and all the rest of it, realizing years later that was the best thing probably ever happened to my family and I. It's taken a break from eating all that junk. Well, listen, guys, it's been an absolute pleasure. Listen, apologies if we couldn't get to all your questions. Apologies for those that joined early. We had a bit of a technical issue. We've tried to go over to accommodate you. Want to say thanks to everyone that asked questions. If you're unaware and you have some questions that you didn't get answered, you can drop us an email at support@greatblackdetox.com, support@greatblackdetox.com. Drop us an email and we shall endeavor to get back to you within the day, unless it's Saturday. Again, Dr. Amsi and I will be binge drinking Friday night, so we may not get to that till Monday. We want to thank Dr. Keeler for always being insightful. Dr. Keeler, any last words of advice for this weekend? Very quick on Dr. Keeler. Can you give me something, natural remedy for heartburn?
Well, I can't say mint, because if you're estrogen dominant, that's not going to help. A natural remedy for heartburn is an apple that's not old. So you want it to have a high pectin content, because the pectin will help solubilize, break up the gas, and it will also ultimately help with the absorption of some of the acid. Yes, you're going to secrete some more acid, but you're also going to absorb some more. And also, if you can eat, I actually cook quinoa sometimes, just with coconut, without spices. Like if I use a cup of quinoa, I'll get a cup of coconut in that proportion and put it, so I don't use canned coconut milk. I use the dried unsweetened coconut flakes, and put that to cook for like half hour max, and eat the apple and eat maybe a few tablespoons of quinoa. And that helps, because the carb in the quinoa is not so high, but it's high enough where you will absorb some of that stomach acid as well.
Excellent. Well, that was for so Rebecca. I hope that helped. And
then anything magnesium rich, dark leafy green vegetables help too.
Yeah.
anything magnesium rich.
I was going to say ginger. I was waiting for you to jump in on that. Ginger is something as well. You can do a warm ginger tea, chew some ginger. These are all things that are great. So, Rebecca, I hope we answered the question. If not, make sure you come back on here next week, Friday. I think we may be here.
H-Flux.
H-Flux. Yes, we have a supplement for that. H-Flux, we'll put the link in the chat. If I can find it in time. H-Flux, I'll type it into the chat. I think, is Rebecca in the chat? I think she may be on IG.
Did you say H, not H?
It's H. I'm Caribbean. Yeah, I'm Caribbean. Dr. Amsi, final words from you, my friend.
Thank you, everybody, for bearing with us. We had technical difficulties. The IG family stayed with us. They kind of went up and down. But thank you, everybody, for coming along. Stay safe. Take charge of your lives.
Indeed. Listen, thank you all.
That's your winter coat you got on your head, Amsu?
Is that a winter coat?
On top of your head.
You know what? I told you all I was gonna grow. I'm growing an afro. I'm growing an afro for the winter. I might even braid up. By the new year, you might see me with some braids, and then I shave it all off again next year. Start it all over.
My.
He's not lying. You know, you might see him with some Leroy specials, some cornrows or something. You know. But listen, guys, it's been an absolute pleasure as always. Thank you for joining. Thank you for your love and support. We love and support you guys. We are sending copious amounts of love to you. Happy healing, happy detoxing. If you have any questions, drop us an email. Do not suffer in silence. Go and get your blood work. Go and get checked up. Find out what's going on. Then we can look at the alternatives and how to get you right. But do not suffer longer than you need to. So listen, enjoy your weekends, and we shall see you guys next week. Look out for some emails. We've got some things coming up. We're going to invite you guys to. So, yeah, we love you guys. Peace out.
Peace.